Hello and welcome to the Tech Guys spontaneous live stream podcast, the 2021 year in review. Spoiler, it sucked, but we earned it. I am your host, Pete the Tech Guy, and it's been a while since I've had the desire or even the thought to do a spontaneous live stream, but wanted to fill you in on some stuff with the blog, fill you in on, give my commentary on the year and so forth. Great to have you around. If you like what you see, by the way, of course, give a up arrow to the stream. Well, let's get right to it. And before we start, let me wish all of you a happy new year and a merry sixth day of Christmas. Remember, there are 12 days of Christmas, actually a little more according to the church calendar. So we are still in the Christmas season. So let me at this time wish you all hope you had a merry Christmas day, and I hope the sixth day of Christmas is as merry as the previous five. So 2021 is almost finished. Today is the 30th. New Year's Eve is tomorrow, and New Year's Day is Saturday. And there's going to be all kinds of year in review commentary, so I figured I would throw mine in now. And to be blunt, 2021 sucked. If you have to think of, and especially when you compare it to 2020 and 2019 and 2018 and the years before that. And we've had our economy take a downward spiral. We've had our supply problems get horrible. We've had gas prices go through the roof. We've gone from an energy independent country, an exporter of energy, to an importer of energy again. Prices, as I said, are through the roof. And on all commodities, not just gasoline, but of course, gasoline drives all the others. We've had incredible defeats in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And we've had our national psyche damaged. And when it comes down to it, when you look at 2021 altogether, one has to conclude that 2021 has pretty much sucked. We've seen disruptions in just about everything in life. The country's self-confidence is gone. Our trust in institutions are gone. Our ability to do things is gone and weakened. But the most incredible thing about all of these things is that every single bit of it was preventable. And every single bit of it is our own fault. In fact, the way I consider it, 2021 sucked, but we earned it. And we earned it because we decided to live a lie. And once you start living a lie, you end up living a lot of lies. The first lie that we lived was that Joe Biden won the 2021 election. Now, I'm sure some of you who might choose to tune in are going to shut it off right now, and I'm going to repeat what I said earlier this year. To me, as a Sicilian, the give on the election was the 5 states stopping their count at once. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, that the argument was, since no one state could have brought them over the top, everyone had to agree to this deal before one of them bothered to do it. And we still see news. In fact, this week in Pennsylvania, we have news that a court battle was won to examine Dominion machines, and Democrats were in the process of trying to block this examination. Now, again, if everything is on the up and up, you don't mind people looking. You are anxious to show, hey, everything's on the up and up. Look at these things. Look at this stuff. But the left fought tooth and nail to keep these things from being examined. And enough people on the right decided that it was not worth exposing the dirty laundry. Because what I think the dirty laundry of all of this, and I've said this before, is that a lot of people know that shenanigans had been taking place in the various states where this took on in the various counties, but they let it go in exchange for votes and things in the past. And the establishment decided to go after Trump because in their mind, Trump is very dangerous to them. in the sense that it was more about accomplishing things than feathering nests. And when everything around is about feathering your nest, then, you know, if someone's actually asking you to accomplish things, remember the famous line from the original Ghostbusters, I liked the university, they gave us money and we didn't have to produce anything, type of thing. Trump was a danger to that. And thus we saw people who should have known better, who should have had the courage. And it doesn't encourage, courage and cowardice are contagious, because the people in charge chose cowardice over courage. We ended up with the administration we got. And because we let this happen, we deserve it as a people. So instead, we have the inflation, we have Afghanistan, where there are Americans still trapped, but no one wants to talk about it. We have the COVID situation, which has become ridiculous. And the COVID situation drives a lot of this. And what's really driving this is, again, the idea of creating an elite. The Kurt Schlichter today has a piece called "The Establishment Wants to Crush You Uppity Peasants." And the thing about all of this is, again, it's living the lie. We're living the lie in terms of we lived the lie in terms of the election. We're living the lie in terms of COVID. We now know what we didn't know before. And again, the first 3 or 4 months, the first even 6 months of COVID, I will give the authorities a pass. Did not know how deadly it was going to be. We did not know what the long term was. We didn't know if it was just a super flu or if it was something. We didn't know. So you take the precautions that you were taking. And I'd be willing to give people a pass for the first 6 months. But once it became political, everything went. And again, and living the lie, Glenn Greenwald mentioned this week, the day that people no longer trusted the government was the day when everyone was saying, you must stay in, you must stay in, you must decide that the public good means separate for everybody. But then when the George Floyd stuff came around, mass protests were okay. It was not so dangerous as long as it served the purpose of satisfying Democrats. We lived the lie that the protests in places like Keosha, and the riots, I should say the riots in New York and Keosha and Portland and Seattle were peaceful. And that lie was pushed by the media. The lie was pushed by the tech giants. Remember, the year started with YouTube censoring me over. Actually, that's not true. The previous year ended with YouTube censoring me, banning me every other week for retweeting a post. And once they thought Biden was safe, they stopped banning me. But we've seen more and more of that. The inventor of RNA vaccines has been now banned from Twitter, not because he's not credible, but because he is credible. And it's one thing to have a guy like me doing a podcast with very few viewers saying something concerning vaccines and so forth. It's another thing for the inventor of the vaccines saying something like that, because it's kind of hard to refute them. And of course, we had the "Let's Go Brandon" phenomenon again, and that phenomenon was built on a lie that people were cheering the race driver Brandon because the reporter did not dare say aloud what people were actually saying. And even this week in The Guardian, they had a post, the most admired person of the year, when it looked like J.K. Rowling was going to win it for standing up to the transgender madness. They stopped the poll. They stopped it because that would expose the lie. And it is a lie. And because we've consented to live under so many lies, and that so many people have consented to live under these lies, we've earned what's come. And all of this is the predictable result in it. And I mentioned Mr. Schlechter's piece, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. I literally just spotted it as I started the podcast. And this really is, and it's something I wrote about many years ago, is an attempt to return to feudalism. Now, for those of you who were educated in our public school system, feudalism was a society whereby you had a series of lords who controlled land, and you had serfs who lived on the land, and they basically belonged to the lord. They were basically slightly above slaves. They were basically belonged to the land. And the idea was that the Lord was better than them and the Lord could do this and the Lord could do that. And we have a set of elites who are more concerned about having more, being able to do things. I will impose restrictions on you, but I will ignore these restrictions because I'm better than you. I'm more important than you. It's more important that I'm able to fly. It's more important that I'm able to do these various things. And so all of these things that we're dealing with this year that have made this year so sucky uh, are things that are happening because of people ignoring reality. But reality does not, in the end, reality does not care whether you want to ignore it or not. So a lot of things have happened. We've seen now people have been awakened. And in a sense, it's almost the irony of all of this is if they had not stolen the election, if Trump had had his second term would have passed. And it was very unlikely that we would have gotten another Trump. You might have gotten someone who spoke like Trump, but they would have been part of the establishment to some degree, and they would have been able to massage things in a way that the establishment would have preferred. But we did not. And thus, Trump becomes a threatened being, sort of like Sarah Palin, in the sense that Sarah Palin, because of John McCain's defeat, was able to mobilize and do much more damage to the left than she would have done as vice president. In the same way, Donald Trump is doing much more damage to the left and their institutions. And the exposition of exposing the institutions came out too. The fact of what was taught in public schools, what was being done with police, what was the actual end results, which has caused devastation in blue areas, blue cities. There's a reason why people are fleeing California and fleeing New York and fleeing my state of Massachusetts. The reason why Massachusetts hasn't emptied out is one, New Hampshire can only hold so many people. And secondly, we're surrounded by New York, Vermont, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So comparatively speaking, I mean, our sanity thing is graded on a scale. Of course, in Massachusetts, we're one of the few places where Biden's approval has gone up, which is an incredible thing in itself. But this is what's going on. Hey, yep, no plan. And in chat, we see no plan Joe, and that's a fair statement. But I've always been of the opinion that Joe Biden is not in charge, and it is my opinion that Joe Biden is not making decisions. Now, Don Suber disagrees with me because Biden has a long history of various things going on to enrich himself, and he may just be playing them publicly and pulling the strings. I think the reason we'll really find out if this is true or not next year. If the Democrats try and push him out and Biden decides to fight, and it's actually his nature. Joe Biden is up for Joe Biden's out for Biden's corruption, like the business with the painting. Speaking of acknowledging things that are false, the left pretends that the president's son selling paintings to anonymous buyers is not a question of trying to buy influence. We keep pretending this, and because people are playing with this lie, because people are believing the lies, that's where the downfall comes from. But the idea, as I said, is to create feudalism, where you have a two-tiered society with the elites being permitted things and the rest of us not. And it's a disgraceful thing that Americans have permitted this. Dennis Prager has said that after seeing what he's seen the last year, he does not wonder so much about why ordinary Germans went along with the Nazis. And I actually understand how some people are going along with some of these mandates and so forth, because they've got jobs that they got to make a living, they got to make their jobs and so forth. So they've been playing this stuff. And it's been kind of sad when you think about it, that we've seen this go in this direction. But again, if we acknowledge these lies, if we do not acknowledge this lie, if we don't call out the lie, we're going to suffer the consequences of it. And as time goes on, we've seen more of Irish democracy, more people saying, I can't put up with this, or I'm not going to put up with this anymore. But again, we've done this to ourselves. And in a way, that's happened to me in my own situation, in the sense that I'm now blogging at DaTechGuyblog.blog because my primary site, The guy who was running it, who was a friend of mine, sold his business and retired, and he's having a good retirement. And I hope it's an enjoyable one. But the person who took it over didn't pay me any attention, didn't pay any mind, and I went along with it for a while because it didn't. The site was still working, people were still writing, and so forth. But until finally we were having problems with the site, everything's non-responsive. So I said, forget it. Stop paying. Went over to YouTube. Went over to cancel it, but the site remains up, which is why I think everything's on automatic. Now, maybe the guy got COVID and sick. Maybe he ran off. Maybe he died. I don't know, but everything is still running automatically. So so the old site is still up with a point to the new site, and eventually I'll regain control of my thing, and DaTechGuy.com will point to where I'm going. But again, I should have thought about moving when the guy retired, but I didn't. So it's it's my own fault there. So we are still out there. We're at the techguy.blog, or what used to be DaTechGuy.wordpress.com. And we also have a secondary site at DaTechGuyblog.org, which is our new backup site. So we're still around. My Magnificent Seven writers are still there. Juliet Baldylocks isn't writing for me anymore, which is a shame. I'd like to have her back. But, it is what it is. So we'll just continue on like that. But in that respect, I mentioned Donald Trump. The good thing about what's happened on all of this, and you often see in Christianity God using bad things to bring out good things, because people have seen. And a happy new year to you, No Plan Joe. That's funny. I'm seeing you in chat, but I'm not seeing you in the number of people in the. You're not showing up on the live stream count, which is very strange. But we're not going to worry about that for the moment. But the irony is, if you didn't have the steel, if you didn't have all this stuff, the left would not be exposed. And it was a great comment was made by Greenwald, that there was and he was talking about the hit piece on Dan Bongino, that there was a time when. Yeah, good point. Google loves suppressing numbers. That's a fair point. So I don't know how many people are actually watching. So if you're watching, to say something in chat, and that way I'll know you're around. But if this had not taken place, a lot of the things that people are finding out, that people are discovering, would not be discovered. The left would have been able to subtly continue to change our culture. And it's really going to be down to us what we decide to do. What are we willing to put up with it? And part of this is human nature, in the sense that once you acknowledge there's a problem, then you have to decide, are you going to live with it, or are you going to do something about it? And that's really it. And it's the fear of, I could lose this, I could lose that, that is really, I think, driving the silence that we've had. Too many people are too afraid. But it's only when people, like, for example, the nurses decided, I'm going to, we're not, the nurses who decided not to take the shot, for example, now in Alberta and other places, they're being called back in because they can't do without them. The truckers, the pilots, the whole kit and caboodle, who decided, we are not going to consent. We are not going to submit. The state of Florida, where Ron DeSantis is making his case as a presidential candidate, and as a great governor, and as a potential presidential candidate, saying, we're going to demonstrate how we can do this properly. And it's that demonstration, it's that contrast that really is making the difference here. It's really showing things. And of course, a lot of this is fueled by Chinese money. But China, in my opinion, is a paper tiger. I think we're actually in more danger of a real shooting war with China now than we've ever been, because we appear weak. And China, in reality, is weak. China, because of the one-child policy that they had for a very long time, the population, you have an aging population that's not replacing itself. You have a large body of young men who do not have wives. And you have a large amount of people who got to the idea that we don't want children, we just want sex. There was a great article that I saw at Althouse on that subject, where people were saying, we don't want to have children. And they were unfortunately having abortions and so forth. But it's people that are valuable. And at my own job, I work in a warehouse, as I've mentioned before. I saw a lot of Haitians start working over the last month. Now, some of them might have been illegal, some of them might not. I don't know about the screening procedure for the temp companies that were bringing in people, but they came here and they worked hard. And they worked hard because they knew that America gave them an opportunity. And I remembered what's really hurt the most from all of this is something, and I'm going to quote myself. I did a series called Interviews with Immigrants. And there was a woman, Maria, from the Dominican Republic, who I asked her why she came to America. And she talked about how she felt safe here. Even when she saw like strange men, she felt safe. And she did not feel that in the Dominican Republic as a woman. And we've taken that away. And people know that, regardless of what our friends on the left they say that they diss America because they know America's not going to punish them for it. And they're still going to be wealthy over there. They're still able to make a living. They'll take all the comforts of America. They'll take all the comforts of Western civilization, from plumbing to the computer, while decrying it because they know that there's no actual danger of them being any consequences. It's the same reason why you see people going after statues of Confederate generals while ignoring slavery in China, and even apologizing to China, some companies, for opposing the slavery, because it's a lot easier to go after somebody who will not fight back. That's why in New York, you see them going after kids and people at restaurants breaking the COVID rules that they set up versus the rioters, because there's no danger in going after those people, but there's danger going after the rioters. And that's what we're having. Again, it's a matter of cowardice versus courage. And until we as a society decide to show courage, things aren't going to change. Now, how is 2022 going to be? I don't know. In terms of the elections, things are looking good, but again, it's not so much appealing to the voters that's going to matter. It's appealing to the people who count the votes. Until people are sure that they're going to have an honest election, it's not going to matter. And as long as we have activists who take the time to push for honest elections, that's where you're going to have the difference. But we're seeing signs of things cracking. Okay, I'm taking a look in the chat. Sentencing ADMO on the Delta flight. Yes, I did see about that, and it's disgraceful. But you're gonna have to deal with this stuff, and we're gonna have to deal with it by courage, by saying no, by be and eventually you're going to see things change. Like the COVID rules changed, and the NFL's COVID rules and testing rules have changed until those who are symptomatic. And I think the reason why they're changing, and the reason why they're changing the testing regimens, is not so much because they're worried about public health, but if you have a lot of positive among people who are vaccinated, then it shows that the vaccination is not making the difference that it should. Now, my opinion on the vaccinations are pretty much the same as President Trump's, in the sense that I think it was good that the vaccines were developed. I anticipated that they would be more deadly than normal vaccines because they were developed so fast. And in 7 or 8 years, they're probably going to be a lot safer. But in 7 or 8 years, it's not going to matter because COVID's not going to be any more dangerous than the flu. In fact, we're reaching a point where it's not more dangerous now. But I was willing to accept that. I was willing to accept the various things, but there's increased risks. Especially, you've seen the heart attacks and the people dropping dead. So if you have heart conditions, like there's a history of heart disease in my family, so I'm not all that anxious to get the shot. And I think in about a year, maybe 2 years, a lot of people are going to feel very, very stupid for being led by the nose in this. And the reason why so many people still go along with it, and again, if you're of a high risk, if you're a person who is of a high risk, the vaccine might be a good choice for you. I don't have any problem with people who choose to take it if they think that they're of high risk. I mean, that's what it's there for, just like a flu shot. If a flu shot helps you prevent you getting the flu, from all means, take it. If you think the vaccine increases your odds, by all means, take it. But be aware of the risks. And if we were on it, and again, if people were honest about this instead of selling it, this would not be a problem. These are all self-inflicted wounds, and that's really the thing. A lot of what's been going on is self-inflicted. And the question is, in 2022, are we going to undo those self-inflicted wounds? I don't know for sure. But here are I'm going to make a half dozen predictions here. Prediction number one: the Republicans are going to take the House and are going to take the Senate because it's much harder to steal on the local level and coordinate those steals. Whether or not the Republicans are going to do anything with that, I don't know. Prediction number two: Joe Manchin flips after or just before or just after the Republicans take the Senate. Because when it comes down to it, he's not gonna flip before that. But he's right now. There's no reason for him to flip. If he flipped today, he would be going. He would not become the most important senator in the Senate. Lisa Murkowski would, because because the left would pressure her to flip, because you already have President Trump pressuring her against the primary and so forth. So, and especially since she's already bad on abortion, she would be a good fit to the Democrats in some respects. So you're going to see that flip. You're going to see the possibility of that flip. But Manchin's not going to flip until it's no longer to his advantage to flip. That's prediction number two. Prediction number three: unless he dies, Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic candidate in 2024. Because he's not going to be pushed out, and Jill Biden's not going to let himself be pushed out. And frankly, they know where too many bodies are buried. And I say that figuratively rather than literally, although it may be literally true. You never know. It's the same reason why there's no prosecution of Cuomo, because Cuomo's a Sicilian. He knows where too many bodies are buried, and he'll talk. Same thing on Biden. Unless they can somehow silence them both, Biden's going to run again. We don't know whether it's going to be against Trump or against someone else. Prediction number four, although I'm not going to make the prediction as who's going to run for president in 2024, but I'm just saying Biden's not going anywhere. All this talk about Biden is to try and scare him out of there. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Prediction number four, by this time next year, you're going to see most of the mask mandates gone. You're going to see most of the COVID stuff gone because the burnout is there and it's hurting the left. As long as this was in favor for the left, as long as it helped the oligarchs, it went on. Now that it's hurting them, now they're going to try and change the channel. They have to change the channel in order to get ahead. Fifth and finally, you're going to see the Democrats go all out to change the rules to enable cheating. Now, this is because, and it's sort of like the line from the Bible where the devil knows his time is short. I think the left knows their time is short right now because they overreached. So you are going to see it get much worse early because of the panic that's coming from this. And that's where it's going to get very, very interesting. How it ends, I don't really know for sure. But I know this much. None of this happens in terms of the GOP wins, the stopping of the left, unless we get involved. And the biggest news that I think the best news for the country has been people getting involved in school boards. The more people and one of the problems with the national, like us, we're talking about national things right now. One of the problems with that is it may be fun talking about national things, but actually changing things is hard work, which means volunteering, which means showing up at school board meetings, which means running candidates locally. That's how you're going to change things. And if you want to change things, if conservatives get involved in the local level, that's how you're going to change things. And even in blue states, that is how you change things. You change them from the bottom up. And let me leave everyone with one piece of advice to any GOP candidate running in any state at any level. You want to win, run on this platform. If I am elected, I will fight against any mandate. I will fight against vaccinating mandates. I will fight against mask mandates. I will fight to get kids back in school. Although personally, I think the kids not being in public schools is probably a good thing given what we found out about what's being taught. That is the path to victory in 2022. What will happen with the rest of the world? I haven't the slightest idea. But you never know. We see mandatory vaccines in the Netherlands. We see camps in Australia. I'm not going to worry about how crazy the rest of the world is going to be. But those are my predictions. That's my year in review. 2021 sucked. Hopefully 2022 will be better. 2021 for me was very tough. My wife was my wife had long COVID. So people who say COVID's not real or something, that's not true. My wife was in really bad shape for a long time, and she's back up and running now, and we're very grateful for it. So there are going to be those people who have problems with it. There are going to be those who don't. But for myself, as I look at it at the end of the year, gotten through a lot, and I thank God for all the good that has come to me and mine. And I pray that those blessings continue for us, and I pray that those blessings go to you as well. So let me end with 4 quick plugs. Plug number 1: if you like what you heard here, give me thumbs up, give me that. If I basically can get $100 a week, then I'll do regular podcasts every week. If I can get 500 a month, I'll do I'll do something like that on a regular basis. Because I'm working full time. I don't have the time to do the things I used to do. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2: please point yourself and point others to the Tech Guy blog. That's DaTechGuy blog. That is where the primary blogging is taking place. Eventually, DaTechGuyblog.com will point there, but until that happens, go to DaTechGuyblog.blog. That's where the action is. Love to see you go over there. Thing number 3: if you're at all Catholic or if you're all Christian, I do a weekly radio show called Your Prayer Intentions. It's taped. It's on WQPH Radio 89.3 FM, Shirley, Fitchburg. There's a podcast of it and a live stream on the site. The site is wqphradio.org. If you have prayer intentions there, feel free to go and leave them, and we'll be happy to pray for them. Plug number 4: I also do a devotion, and this is for Catholics, called the Indulgence Calendar, and that's available at the WQPH site and will be available at my site. It's a daily, basically, we have people that we ask you to pray for every single day who have died and to earn indulgences for them. So if you're interested, if you're a daily mass person particularly, and you'd like to participate, download the Indulgence Calendar. Be very happy to participate in that. It would be a great thing. And finally, let's see, we've talked about the blog, we've talked about the podcast, we've talked about the website. And finally, I was reminded of my book because I hadn't had a lot of sales of it, but I do have a book out, Hail Mary, the Perfect Protestant and Catholic Prayer. It's a few years old. Consider picking that up at Amazon. I'm still polishing the second book, which is on marriage, and I've written with my wife. Haven't gotten that, all the I's dotted and T's crossed on that. I hope to get it out this year. I hope to have it out a couple of years ago, but we're going slow on that. So, but keep an eye out. And if you like what you see, consider buying my book on Amazon, considering hitting the tip jar, consider subscribing, because those couple of bucks make the difference. The traffic's a little down, but the subscribers are enough to keep us going and pay the bills. So for all those of you who have been doing that for me, thank you so much. And we hope to provide you with good content next year as well. Again, my full-time job doesn't allow me to go around like I used to, but we're still going to try and do interesting things. I'm planning on doing a series of short videos called Banter with Business, where I talk to small business people. I'm going to start that sometime next year. So keep an eye out for that. And of course, we'll cover Fantastic when it comes up and other things. Until then, let me wish you all a very merry 6th day of Christmas and the rest of the Christmas season, and a happy new year. May God bless you and yours. This is Pete the Tech Guy. So long, take care, and as I said, God bless you all.